Hey, this is John Amos, and they say it ain't easy being greedy.
Can't work.
The New York Jets
can beat anybody in the world, and I think we're going to win next Sunday.
Robert Saleh. New York Jets got themselves a great one.
Get used to the mantra, all gas, no break.
I'm not going to lie to you. There's no way I'm not going to have enthusiasm on the sideline.
Darnold, wow, what a play. Still going. Inside the 10 for the touchdown.
Everybody, welcome back to the show. This is week 3 of the Quarterback Chronicles here, part 3, starring our very own Sam Darnold coming at you. We have a variety of people lined up for the show this week. We're going to really dig into the minutia of Sam Darnold this week, the small, precise details sometimes that we miss as Jet fans because we get so emotional. So to join us this week, a very special guest, police officer, Jet fan, master of the film breakdown. Yeah. Well-respected name in the Jet universe, Joe Blewett is here today. Thank you very much for joining us, Joe.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped. Like we were talking about a little bit before, it's dead. But now the offseason's about to come in a week or so with some of these signings, franchise tags, drafts, get to watch film on some new guys. Move on to the future of Jets football, hopefully, not the last decade of what it's been. It seems to be steering in that direction. So I'm pretty pumped right now. So obviously the quarterback being the biggest topic to kind of figure out in the future. So I'm excited to talk about it.
And before we get to say, let me ask you, you're a big Jet fan. You know we've had Adam Gase here the past 2 years. Now, we won't get into him. We've removed that negativity. We've removed that, Joe, from our equation here. What I want to ask you is, Robert Saleh steps in the door here, a whole new regime. How do you feel about the hire? How do you feel about his chances here in New York moving forward?
I really like it. I think with the Adam Gase hire, that was obviously pretty much everybody's last option as Jets fans. We said that before he was hired, and then, of course, he was hired. Both him and Mike McCarthy were my bottom guys. I really didn't want Mike McCarthy. I can get into that from film aspect if I need to in a future podcast. But didn't like any of those guys. Of course, they bring in Gase. It was miserable from every aspect, from on the field to off the field. Wasn't respected by anybody in the NFL. Everybody's completely confused why we hired him. After going into this offseason and seeing exactly who the candidates were, looking into some of their film. Saleh was one of my top guys, along with the Matt Campbells of the world.
Nice.
Obviously, they brought him in. We all heard. I'm sure we're all refreshing our Twitter feeds every single second to see where, if he's getting signed or not. And then he leaves the building, and every Jets fan's panicking because it feels like we're going to get option. Now everybody was panicking. It's going to be Doug Peterson, so we're all freaking out. So it was great to bring him back. Well-respected guy. Leader, whether it be big media wigs who respect the guy, to NFL front office guys, to players, from Russell Wilson to everybody. So really respected throughout the league. His demeanor is great. His press conference wasn't a complete mess. It doesn't have to be stellar, but as long as you're not Adam Gase with the taco emojis floating around his head, it's pretty much good. So I've been really, really impressed with him. I like the way he speaks to the media. I like the way he speaks about his players. He seems to be a true guy, not a fake guy, coming out with quotes and somewhat to the relation of, I'm kind of here to get my players to make money, which is true. Like that's a no BS answer. And I love it. So he seems like he's going to really mesh well with the players. I like the fact that he gave the play calling to the defensive coordinator instead of him calling it, so he could really focus on the team, because one of the mantras we heard all offseason was we want a leader of men. We want a guy who's going to oversee the whole organization. So once he did that, really put one of the final nails in the coffin. Obviously, the season has to come here, so he could still be a failure. But from the point of kind of looking into him to now, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with the hire, without getting into the X's and O's and all that stuff. So.
And we know, and so our topic this week is going to be Sam. He inherited Sam Darnold as his quarterback here. Now, we got the number 2 pick. Zach Wilson seems to be the hot choice there, and most of the mock drafts you're looking at here for the Jets. Maybe Justin Fields has an outside chance. Maybe you know better than I do. Or Sam coming back, what you hear from the Jets, that could be complete lip service, which it probably is, because he wants to move Sam. So you're not going to diminish. Joe Douglas is not going to diminish that asset. I hear people keep saying, look what he's saying. Look what he's saying. You can't really trust in that. At least I don't trust in Joe Douglas saying Sam could be here next year. Do you see that as a reality? But we're going to get into him here, Sam, and go through his last 3 years. When it comes to our squad, I don't know if the numbers tell the whole story with him, but do you see it as a reality, him coming back next year?
No, yeah, and listen, Joe Douglas is not going to say, yeah, you know what, I had some faith in the guy. He really freaking sucks. We got to get rid of him. Like, obviously, it's going to diminish his trade value. So, yeah, of course, we're going to speak positively about the guy. Like, obviously, Jamal Adams was a Jet for life just a year ago.
Yeah.
So anything can happen. So, I don't really see it as a possibility. And I know a lot of people are talking about, oh, well, you just trade down, you get some more picks. And then if he doesn't work out, then you just get a quarterback next year. The biggest problem with that is, one, tell me who that quarterback is, because I don't know who it is.
Exactly.
And then two, if you are the better team, which you have to be at this point, you're going to get free agents because the Jets have so much money in one of the best years to have money, considering the cap situation of all the other teams. We're like, obviously we have the second most cap space, but like only one of 16 teams who can actually sign people. So we have a lot of money in a year that you need, that money's going to go the farthest. You're not going to be at the number 2 pick next year. So then you go to 10, 12, 15, whatever it is, and you might have to trade up a ton of assets to get back up to number 2 if that team is willing to do it, 1. And 2, if the quarterback's even there that you like. So there's so many variables in getting a quarterback. People say, oh, just skip on the quarterback, the most important position of all of professional sports, and just pass it down the road. Now, I'm not saying
Joe, if it's that easy, like you said, at some point in the last 40 years, we would have got a quarterback, right? Like
exactly.
People make it seem like you just do it.
And then the excuse will be, oh, well, look at Russell Wilson. He was drafted in this round. Look at Tom Brady. Okay, you know what? It's so easy to get a quarterback. Let Joe Douglas pick the 5th guy on their board instead of the 1st or 2nd, because quarterbacks you'd find them in the 2nd, 3rd, and 5th and 6th round. So,
but Joe, you hear people say that Sam is still like NFL people, like experts, quote unquote, say he's still salvageable. And you look at some of his numbers. I know you got to go beyond the numbers. That's why we have you here. Numbers don't tell the whole story. But Mike gave me some numbers that were startling when it came to his record as a starter, which is atrocious. 13 wins, 13-25, second worst completion percentage, the worst TD to interception ratio, which is mind-boggling, the worst QBR. So when you read those things, what I'm wondering is if he's as good a prospect as people thought he was coming into the league. And even some people think he is now. Shouldn't he have, even with the circumstances we know with Gase and everything that he was dealt, shouldn't he have been better than that if he is a good quarterback?
Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure. And obviously some of the team aspects did hurt him, but people like to put topics into like such like a black or white category where it's all Adam Gase in the team or it's none, which is obviously not true. But there are plenty of examples of him, failing himself. But before I even get into that, and this is just like in my thinking of Sam Darnold and bringing him back to the Jets. There are 5. I think there's 5 quarterbacks at the top of my head in the last like 20 years who have won in their second contract. Those quarterbacks being Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and there's one other one I'm missing, maybe Ben Roethlisberger if I didn't already say him. And what is the common trend between all those quarterbacks? They're elite quarterbacks. So you need to, if you have a quarterback in their second contract, they need to be elite. So if Darnold plays decent this year, like you have to sign him with the idea of, okay, he's elite. And can he prove that this year? I severely doubt it. Some of the quarterbacks, there's been very few quarterbacks who have been statistically as bad as he's been and have bounced back. And again, I'm not a stats guy. I'm not a stats guy because I don't know how PFF and all those people measure their numbers because do they know about schemes? Do they know about all this stuff? I don't know who's watching it. Like for the Minnesota Vikings, Sam Darnold, what was that? His rookie or second year, throws a pass to Sharon Peake, hits him in the chest. Sharon Peake drops its interception. Is that a bad? Does that negatively affect his grade because it's an interception, or is it all on Sharon Peake? Like I don't know how they measure the numbers, so I don't put any stock into any of those numbers, to be completely honest. But no, there's a couple of plays I can think of off the top of my head. Denver Broncos game, I've talked about it a lot. There's a 3-man route concept, but his first read's to the left. It's an isolated dig route to the boundary side. He's staring at the receiver, which I believe is Lawrence Cager, with literally a 10-yard open window, which is massive in the NFL. Absolutely massive. Play action, he's terrible at selling play action.
It's terrible.
He's absolutely dreadful at it. He's staring at Cager for probably a good 2 seconds, decides to pull the ball down and try to escape. He gets sacked, and then you see everybody who just watches the broadcasting will say, oh, well, he had nobody open, and look, now it's a sack, and that's what hurt his shoulder.
But, Joe, but listening to you, I know that coming out of USC, you were a fan of Sam, yes. Like I was, like all of us were. We were really, really excited, and especially after his last 4 games of his rookie season, we were all really, really high. That game against Houston, that game against he went toe-to-toe with Rodgers against Green Bay. We were all really excited. And then his second year was up and down the mono, and then third year he was the worst quarterback in the NFL. What went wrong? Like, what do you think? Aside from Gase, What do you think happened to him? Is it all Gase, or was it just he isn't it what we thought he was going to be?
Yeah, it seems that his problems kind of amplified. Like the problems that were kind of hidden in his rookie year really amplified, and just became bigger problems. Like his footwork was a problem at USC, where you'd see him, lack some heat on a ball or put a ball a little bit too outside because he tends to step in a bucket and throw from an open position, or his hallway is not pointed, which is the midpoint of the back foot. You want to get that point to where the ball is going. Obviously, you want to drive through your hips, rotating, through your upper body to create that whip-like motion, throwing the ball. Like those things he was not doing in his last year at college, but it would only affect him like 1 out of every 10 reps, let's say, where in the NFL now it seems to be, like half his plays where it's really affecting him. He has he obviously his clock's a little bit screwed up too because of how much pressure he was getting in his first and second year. That's undeniable. His offensive line his first 2 years was absolutely dreadful. This last year was a little bit better, but still that definitely affected him. He's not confident in himself. He's really bad in terms of seeing guys peel off, or peel off underneath of his route concepts. Where smash concepts, he's historically bad with guys dropping intermediate, and kind of getting underneath the route concepts. So his problems have just not really, they haven't subsided. They've only grown in the last couple of years. So it's not like he didn't have those problems ever. They just never really went away. And then that being multiplied with Adam Gase only made them show up more because Adam Gase, it would be 3rd and 2, and he's running route concepts versus a blitz 15 yards down the field on 3rd and 2. Why? If you have a pressure look, you need an outlet pass. Why is there guys running crease concepts 30-yard field? But like I said, it's Darnold's problem too. The inaccuracy, him not seeing guys peel off into coverage. Not reading leverage, not reading things pre-snap. Like I think it's against the Buffalo Bills was that play where Denzel Mims' first game. And he was wide open to the left side of the field and Darnold went there late. Based on the pre-snap formation, and this is nothing like Monday morning quarterbacking. Based on their leverage, they had a smash concept to the right side, and you had 3 guys outside and high. And as soon as the ball is snapped, if they continue to stay outside and high, he cannot throw that. They stayed outside and high, and he got locked onto it for whatever reason. Didn't skip on it, which again, second versus half a second difference is huge in the NFL. Obviously, didn't skip on it. Got to Denzel Mims late and didn't pull the trigger even when he should have there. So like that's a problem. There was a play against the Colts where he had a check down or a hot route to Berrios because there's a cat blitz from the right side, which is the corner blitz, and you see Berrios before the snap literally pointing to the blitzer, to Darnold, like, hey, if he comes, I'm open. Like, I'm adjusting my route to the flat because obviously they have route adjustments to blitzes too. He points him out. Darnold sees it. The corner blitzes. For whatever reason, Darnold doesn't check it, and then he gets sacked when Berrios is wide open for 10, 15 yards. Like, that stuff is not – like, listen, Adam Gase is a problem. But Adam Gase at the same time is not in his headset to telling him not to throw to wide open receivers.
Right. So, and you would think at year 3 he would already understand it. And one good thing that's going to be great is that he should have learned already and shown progression despite Gase. Understood. I completely agree with that. What's wonderful about this year is that we're getting a new offensive scheme. Mike LaFleur is going to be our offensive coordinator. This is coming from the Shanahan offense, which comes from the West Coast offense from Bill Walsh. A lot of the passing offense schemes are influenced by Walsh, but the schemes never stay the same. The coaches put add-ons. Like one of the add-ons from Shanahan was the wide outside zone running scheme that Mike Shanahan implemented, which became paramount and then building off the foundation of the running game, the play action pass, which we know Sam is not good at selling, right? Is another important concept of this offense. Can you explain to our listeners overall the philosophy of this offense and why it's been so effective in the NFL over the years?
Yeah, and the problem too, and before with Sam Darnold too, with the play action, the problem with the play action with Sam Darnold is like simplistically, he should be good at it because he's good at moving. That's when he's at his most natural. So the problem is, 1, he doesn't sell the play action, and 2, the problem with some play actions with quarterbacks who aren't mentally there, all the way there, is that it takes your eyes off the defense for that extra second. So you have to be more decisive on play action than you have to be on a 5-step drop, 7-step drop, because you're not taking your eyes off the defense. But like you said, West Coast, it's a timing based offense. It's a lot of flooding zones and creating a lot of yak opportunities. So you need to get the ball out on time, in rhythm, in order to create that timing. We saw that with Sam a lot, like even like a slant flat concept, like simple things that he was not getting into the flat route quick enough, creating that extra, couple of yards of separation, or allowing the receiver to catch the ball and turn upfield. So he's not going to create guys a lot of yak opportunity because he's not as decisive and quick triggered as he should be for this offense. And like you said, the wide zone, inside zone, it's sometimes, with the 49ers, they run a little bit more wide zone. The Packers with LaFleur's brother, he runs a little bit more inside zone, at least than the 49ers did. So it's going to be a mix of inside, mid zone, wide zone. Depending on how they feel comfortable, they'll run that stuff, and obviously they'll do what their players are more comfortable with. But that system, like you said, you have guys who can get yak. It's important to have those guys. Look at what they had with the 49ers with Deebo Samuel and Kittle. A lot of 12 personnel, so it's a lot of heavier sets. You're not going to see as much 11, so you really do need 2 tight ends. You need a good fullback. You need some versatile running backs. You don't really need one big guy to do anything like that. But like you said, West Coast, rhythm-based, a lot of yak opportunities, a lot of play action, deep shots off of that, because a lot, obviously when you're running a lot and the run game is successful, you're running a offensive system in terms of passing that's flooding these short to intermediate zones. People are start creeping up. The Shanahan system now, once they start creeping up, play action, bite them, and then they take moonshots over the top. And another thing that they do too with that is they build. They're not an overly complex system in terms of, with Adam Gase, he had. And I don't know how much you've watched of my stuff, but I watched a lot of it with Marcus Coleman, who played DB in the NFL for 11 years. And we liked, there was concepts that we liked of Gase, but the problem with Gase is he almost outsmarted himself, where he ran too many different concepts at times. Even though on broadcast it might have not have looked like that, but the thing that makes Shanahan's system really successful is they build off of that. So they might take a 3-yard gain, a 3-yard gain, a 3-yard gain, and make you think that you've won, until they build another concept off of that, and then you're looking, almost like encouragement, oh crap, whatever. I'm not going to try to drop any F-bombs, but and now there's a receiver streaking 10 yards behind the safety, whether it be a bender route or whatever it may be, or in a spot, just to be simplistic, where a curl is now a stutter go. Like they build off of concepts and make you feel comfortable until they crush you. So a lot of yak, a lot of 12 personnel. Rhythm based. Again, you need a smart quarterback, a play action quarterback. You want a mobile quarterback. The thing I'm really excited with whoever the Jets get a quarterback, assuming it's not going to be Sam Darnold, is if the guy's a little bit more mobile, and Darnold's even more mobile than they've had with Garoppolo and all these guys in the past, is now they're going to be able to even incorporate some RPO, some read options to that system, which is going to be really exciting, because I haven't really seen the Shanahan system operate with that, minus with maybe I think RG3 was it 2010, 2011, right? Yeah. Was that those years? Yeah. So yeah, the system, that's it really, really simply, off the top of my head. But yeah, it's an exciting system. They definitely need some pieces to bring in to fit it well.
Yeah, that's what I want to ask you. When we get into the running back position, which obviously for San Francisco, it seems like they just had interchangeable guys they'd pop in and would have success. When it comes to us last year at the end of the year, Ty Johnson had a little bit of success. The Raider game, he was decent. The Patriot game, he wasn't that bad at the end of the season. The Rams game, he had a lot of catches, big catches in that game. You didn't get to see him play too much. P. Ryan was kind of a little bit of disappointment. I know he was banged up too. Mm-hmm. Do you think those two guys, along with some other kind of middle of the pack dudes, will be enough? Are you thinking the draft they're going to grab someone? Are you a proponent of grabbing a running back high in the draft this year for the Jets?
No. Running back to me is the least important position in the NFL. As you can see, like Le'Veon Bell, listen, like, great player. When he was coming here, was I excited about him because, the Jets don't ever have superstars? Yes, but at the same time, like, thinking about it logically, a great running back and a bad offensive line is not a good running back. Like, the offensive line is the bread, like that. That's what needs to work. So you need a running back who's good enough, who's decisive enough, who can set up holes, set up his hats. If he's taking a wide angle to the outside and he sees an inside hole, maybe not hit that inside hole, obviously based on his reads, until he sets those guys up a little bit more outside. So you need a guy who's smart, who's patient, but at the same time can hit a hole when he knows he has to. So you've seen a lot of their running backs over the years. They don't really have that one high priority guy. The running back position, especially in the draft, like that, to me, like personally, that's a position you address when like you need that guy to like get over the hump to getting to a Super Bowl. With a team who needs corners, outside linebackers, defensive ends, offensive line, receivers. You don't grab a running back high. I severely doubt they would do that unless it's like, listen, at 34 they're sitting there and like Etienne is there and like on the board he's an A and the other guys are at a B. Okay, like we get it. He's a whole position a grade higher than other guys to grab him. But if there's close to equal, like let's say whoever you want to say, Owusu Koromo is there at 34. I don't know what's on that. I'm random name. Is there at 34 and he's an A- and Etienne's an A, you're taking a linebacker, even though it's that's not a premium position either, but it's more important, especially for the Saleh system, which I've spoken about before, which I plan to do a little bit more on. A lot of people like to say about that system, like I think it's too generic at this point, where people always say like the stock answer is, oh well, the 4-3 versus 3-4, oh, it doesn't really matter, people are in nickel. Yeah, but are they two gapping? Are they penetrating? How much do they run their base? And for me, from what I found from his system, from Saleh's system, is they like to run base personnel versus looks where other teams will run nickels. So the linebackers covering is very, very important. You need linebackers in the system because versus 11 personnel, a lot of teams will run nickel like all the time. Yeah. In Saleh's system, he'll keep his linebackers on the field. So that's a really important position for the Jets.
So let's hope.
I ramble.
Let's hope CJ Mosley is all healthy next year.
Finally plays his first full game.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. So getting back,
one of the last plays he made that was healthy. He stopped like a 45-yard skinny post to John Brown, against the Bills. Like he could do it. So
he looked great.
But the other guys, man,
he was Lawrence Taylor for 2 quarters there.
Yeah,
we're not loaded at linebacker right now, and Hewitt's a free agent too, so we got to figure that out. We have a lot to figure out. As you just mentioned, you ran through the laundry list. Running back is one of the needs, but like you said, insofar as the value chart in the NFL, it's not what it used to be. It's not 1985 anymore. It's a whole different era now.
Yeah, but let's just say, Joe, Sam ends up being our quarterback next year. Let's just say it happens, right? Given the weaknesses and the strengths that you know of Sam over the past few years, do you think that Sam would be a decent fit in this offense? And do you think how much better do you think if he is than he would be from last year?
Like I said, I don't think he's it's hard because if I don't think he's a good quarterback, what system does he really fit well in?
Right.
Do I think he will be better because they're better coaches? Yes, with better personnel. Like it's inevitable this year versus last year, just because the personnel the Jets will have, he will be better. But do I think he's good enough to get us over the hump to that Super Bowl on a second contract you're never going to have to sign him to? No, I don't. Could it happen? Yes. Is that a possibility? Sure. But is it like a 2% chance? That's what I think it is. To be completely honest, that he's good enough to win a Super Bowl. Like, listen, people say, oh, well, he could be this or he could be that. Listen, if he turns into Kirk Cousins or Jimmy Garoppolo, is that good enough in the NFL? To me, it's not. Like, you need to shoot for a top 10 quarterback, and those guys aren't that. But yeah, like he needs to be decisive. He needs to be accurate. He needs to be able to place balls on the proper shoulder to get guys to be able to catch the ball and turn upfield instead of put it on their back shoulder. They're gonna have to flip their body around and then they have to completely stop their momentum. So he doesn't have the short to intermediate accuracy for it. He doesn't have the quick decision making to do it. He's not very, like I said, he's not decisive. The play action cells are not good. His taking his eyes off of the defense on play action is also not a good thing because he's a guy who doesn't trust his eyes. He doesn't really know what he's looking at. So now you're asking him to turn around and not face him for the first second of the play when plays are really only like 3 seconds long in the NFL. So now he has to be even more quick. So does he fit? I guess a little bit better because I think he's going to run a little bit more play action, and that versus what Gase did fits him a little bit better. Guys, I did speak about the play action weaknesses in his game, but overall you want to get him on the move because it's more comfortable. You're not going to see him, with the bad footwork, stepping in the bucket, all of that stuff. So if there's anything that Darnold is good at, it's throwing on the move, in terms of mechanics. So he's a little bit better of a fit in it. But still, again, if he's a bad quarterback, what does he fit in? Yeah. And at this point, I think at this point, regardless of the Sam, I don't know if you guys are Sam defenders, whatever.
No.
He's not that good quarterback.
That's what I want to ask you. So let me ask you. So Stafford, Goff, Wentz, these guys got moved. There's probably in the next month there could be more movement with quarterbacks than we've seen maybe in the last 20 years or maybe our whole life. All these guys, a lot of different quarterbacks could end up different places. And Sam is one of those guys you hear bandied about, might get traded for. Where do you kind of see? I know you don't think he's the best. Where do you see his value right now? Do you see a team giving up a late first or a second to get him? Because to me, when I heard a first-round pick for Sam personally, that seemed like a little much. That's what I felt personally. Some of my Jet fans friends disagree with me, but I didn't see how that's possible because you mentioned this earlier. In the history of the NFL, no one's ever been the lowest ranked QB and gone on and been successful. It doesn't happen. Like that career doesn't. I know, and stats don't matter. I understand. Like you said, they're not the biggest thing, but he's been so bad that would be a historic turnaround. So where do you see his value?
I think the only guy who's ever really like close like to doing that is Alex Smith. If you look at the numbers, but if you had to choose right now, okay, Sam Darnold is prime Alex Smith. Are we keeping Sam Darnold? Like, can we win a Super Bowl with Alex Smith? Like, sure, I guess.
And he was a lot less mistake prone for sure, Alex Smith. Even when he wasn't that great. Yeah, so he was still. He probably had I don't know his QB rating off the top of my head, but that is a good turnaround. He's a good example. But he's always pretty heady. Where Sam, it seems like the mistakes from college kind of followed him here into the pros, and he never improved on those mistakes. So do you see his value being maybe a second rounder? Do you think a team will maybe take a chance on him?
Yeah, I think and again, that's like a question for Adam Schefter. Obviously, you're asking it for a reason. But yeah, I think it's going to be a second and a fifth, like what we've heard.
Okay.
A lot of the offseason. A first, if it's like the Saints, maybe they would give us their pick. I don't know what pick they are, probably like 26, 27. Like if it was like, okay, your first round pick for the Saints first round pick, and we give up like a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, like, okay, I get that. But I think that's right around the value of him is a second round pick.
Okay.
Would I be ecstatic as a Colts fan or not? Well, no, the Colts just got Wentz, but as a Saints fan watching his film and then trading a second round pick for him or a first round pick, no, not at all. But just based on his age and what he was at college, the number 3 overall pick in the NFL draft, 23 years old, a controllable contract for a year. So I get the risk that some teams are going to have to take because those teams are in a position where it's okay. It's not Sam Darnold versus Zach Wilson. It's not Sam Darnold versus Trey Lance. It's not Sam Darnold versus Justin Fields. It's Sam Darnold versus maybe Mac Jones, maybe Kyle Trask. So
right.
At that point,
right.
It's a different conversation, So it's a risk I wouldn't be willing to take necessarily if I was them. I probably want to take the young guy, but yeah, I could see the value because of the age and the ceiling he had.
Well, one thing we understand, with the NFL, narratives drive up value and hype. And, Sam was a top prospect. His name still is something that's attractive to certain coaches. And they think, hey, we can be able to work on this guy. I mean, you look at a guy like Christian Hackenberg, his freshman season, did decent. And then the rest, he was trash. And people still were like, who is this guy Hackenberg? Could we work with him? He was the worst ever. I look at a guy like Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence won a national championship his senior season, right? Didn't get back to winning that, but freshman season, excuse me. Yeah. But his value, his name, his hype was just unbelievable. So then this year you get a guy like Zach Wilson. We just did a show on him with a beat writer last week on Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson did not have the pedigree that Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields had, but he's a guy who came in. I understand the whole cupcake schedule and things like that. But when you look at Zach Wilson, when you look at the skills that this young man, the way he throws the ball, the way he executes. I just asked you about Sam Darnold and the LaFleur offense. Do you think, after looking at some film with Zach, and I don't know how much study you've done, does he seem like he would be a good fit in this offense? He has said this Shanahan offense is the type of offense he would like to play in.
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of rough notes on him. I gotta kind of round it up to make a prettier list, but I probably have about 9 hours worth of show to do on him, film breaking down. I have 140 plays already clipped of him that I plan on doing. So yeah, I have plenty. But yeah, and a lot of people talk about the cupcake schedule. The thing about it is I think people, again, too black or white, what's a cupcake schedule with a cupcake roster that you're playing with? It's not like Justin Fields at Ohio State was playing North Alabama or whatever teams he was playing. He was still playing with BYU's team around him. So I get that argument, but it's not like he's playing with an all-star team. It's JV. He was the all-star team himself. He had some good receivers and things like that. But yeah, I like Zach Wilson a lot. I was confused, to be completely honest, about why he didn't have more hype in 2019. I was watching the 2019 film. I know the stats weren't as good or whatever, but I was watching it just his ability to throw on the run, his quick trigger, his ability to throw off platform, his ability to throw at different arm angles, like that, it was all there, and he progressed in 2020. But I didn't know why he wasn't on the radar in 2019, to be completely honest. I don't get paid full time for this. I think if I was and I was watching Zach Wilson, he would have been a little more hyped up, at least for me, in 2019. But yeah, again, people say, oh, there's never been a good quarterback to come from BYU, and same thing with Ohio State. Well, there's never been a good quarterback to come from Ohio State. Okay, well, Drew Brees came from Purdue. Tom Brady came from Michigan.
Steve Young came from BYU.
Texas. Okay. Well, there you go. That's a better example. See, than even one of those guys. He's gonna be Steve Young. Texas Tech with Mahomes. Like, tell me how many quarterbacks come out of those schools. So
Absolutely,
I hate those arguments.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I hate those arguments. I really do, because quarterback's really hard to find, obviously. So you can't. It's just too simplistic. But yeah, he is very, very clearly for me my number 2 quarterback over Justin Fields. I have a lot of problems with Justin Fields' game, which I'll get into.
I love it.
Yeah. Hey, if you want, I can always come back and whatever, or whatever, a couple weeks. But I'll have notes prepared. I don't have anything. Like I said, I just moved into a new house. But there's a lot of problems with Fields that I could see him, like his ceiling ridiculously high. His floor to me is pretty low though. Like it's concerning, some of the things. But with Zach Wilson, the accuracy in general, deep, is really good. Again, the pocket movement, the pocket awareness, the way he keeps his base really wide while he's going through his transitional footwork, which is just his footwork through read to read, which obviously you want to flip, you want to be ready, but it's really wide. And when it's wide and not shallow, you're able to quickly trigger and drive through and get your hips through. When you're more narrow stance, it takes a little bit longer for your feet to load up and step through the throw to rotate your hips, like little things like that. I like that he does. His confidence, the kind of the swag he has off the top of my head, the ability to throw at different arm angles, like I said, on off platform throws is really important in the NFL, because windows are open for a split second, and if you got to rehish and really set to throw a ball at a different to get it through a window, versus Zach Wilson, who could throw a ball almost like twisted backwards. He just gets it there. Like he has a really good ability to create that whip-like motion from his hips, which is really all you need. You just got to do it properly with your footwork, whether it be on the run, driving that lead foot vertical, allowing yourself to kind of balance. Like there's a lot of little things that I will break down in the future that he does well. There are obviously negatives with his game. His footwork from under center is not good. It gets wonky. His first step after he takes a snap does not cover enough ground, which is not good. His footwork is inconsistent when he's taking dropbacks. It's not always behind him and under him. He can kind of float left to right, which obviously in the NFL, one of the day one things you do is the offensive line blocks around a garbage can for what the set point is supposed to be on that play. And if he's all over the place, he's going to take sacks because the offensive line is expecting him to be in certain places. So that can improve. His throwing mechanics from his lower body can improve at certain times. He has a tendency to, with your back foot, when you're rotating through, you want to rotate forward, allowing your hips to come through. And he kind of has a tendency to kind of throw that foot inwards and get himself off balance with his base, which can lead to some bad throws. Sometimes with his deep ball, I think it's at a little bit too low of a trajectory for me. There was the one play, I forget, it was like when everybody kind of came on to Zach Wilson and he threw a ball, like, oh my God, great play. Like that was a touchdown. I went on Twitter. I'm like, sorry guys, like I'm not here to be an ass, but in the NFL, it's probably an interception. Like the thing about it is like, don't just watch the play and see the success of it and say, okay, that's successful play. That means it's a good play. That's not always necessarily true. Like you got to go through the process and what could have happened in the NFL. Like there was a play that I was talking about with Ashton Davis, where he actually played a ball perfectly. He got beat for a touchdown, but I actually really liked the progress, the process of the play, and gave him a positive for a play he was beat on. So, there's a lot to like with Zach Wilson. There's some negatives too. Like I spoke about with the feet. There's the fact that at times he's a little bit too risk adverse for me, where he might throw a pick that might get picked off in the NFL. There's some times where he gets a little bit too fancy. There's some hospital balls he throws where he might not see a guy peeling off for a robber coverage, whatever it may be, and he'll get his guys killed. But there's a long list. But overall, he is very, very clearly my number 2 quarterback.
There you go. That's what I was going to ask you. So I'll just skip right to my next question. It has to do with Sam. Before we ask you one more and get the hell out of here, in 5 years, if Joe Blewett had to make a prediction, okay, 5 years from now, where do you see Sam? He's a backup somewhere? Does he resurrect his career and just make every Jet fan's nightmare come true? What do you see if you had to put your money on it? 5 years from now, where do you see Sam Darnold's career?
I would probably put my money on stuff. That's why I delete my DraftKings as soon as the football season's over. So I'll be sitting on it like, oh yeah, the Nets will beat the Grizzlies. Like, who cares? Yeah, so it's so hard, especially you're talking about like there's so many moving parts. Like there might be like 15 new starting quarterbacks for new teams this year. So it's like always really hard to predict. If I had to put like money on, I would say as a backup. I think he might have like a little bit, maybe like a resurgence with some teams, but I think teams are going to realize that he's not what they need to get over the hump. It depends on a lot of things.
So would you package him with 3 firsts, Quinnen Williams, for Watson? Real quick, just got to hear that.
Yeah, what's your ceiling on that? What's the highest you would go, Joe? Because there's a lot bandied about. And as you know, when you mentioned here, that game-changing, franchise-changing quarterback, they don't grow on trees.
Watson's alpha. We all know that's
upper.
It's got to be the
top of the pyramid.
Yeah, so there's never been a quarterback traded like him in history.
Never.
Now, and I ask this question when I talk about Watson a lot with people, and I can ask you guys this: if there was an NFL like redraft, like a fantasy draft of the NFL, every franchise is starting their entire team over again. The number 1 pick is Patrick Mahomes. Who's the number 2 pick? Is it Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, it's Watson. Yeah, it is.
So you're talking about the number 2 most valuable asset in the entire NFL.
Right.
So and I love Quinnen Williams. Like I've done shows. I just over Quinnen Williams. The guy is a savage. Like he's going to be a top 3 defensive tackle. He's probably already top 5. Like he is an absolute savage. 3 first-round picks in Quinnen Williams. That's really hard. If it was like 2 in Quinnen Williams, I would do it. But 3 and Quinnen Williams, who is funny, like beginning part of the beginning part of last season, like, trade him for a 2nd-round pick. Like, you guys are nuts. You guys are absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
I think Quinnen Williams himself is worth 2 first-round draft picks. I really am that high on the guy. Now you're talking about the number 2 pick, which is itself, depending on where you're going to trade down to, could be worth easily 2 or 3 first-round picks. You're talking about like 7 first-round picks for the guy, like realistic, like mid-round picks. So that's too much for me. But in terms of taking Quinnen Williams out of it, because I love that guy. I've always said like I'm right around the area of like 3 first-round draft picks and like a mid-round pick. But if it was a difference, like, okay, listen, you put it into a trade machine and it's 3 first-round picks and a 4th, and it says no. If I just had to go 4 first-round picks, am I doing it for Deshaun freaking Watson? Yes, I am.
That's what I'm talking about, man.
Did you hear that, everybody? We gotta.
So
Joe, this actually has been a pleasure, dude. It's great talking to you. Someone who's reasonable, who takes context into his thought process when he talks about sports. Doesn't happen anymore. Doesn't happen in the world as a whole that much anymore. It's nice to hear a refreshing take, man. It was great to talk to you. Thank you very much for joining us with your insight. If anyone wants to support you, follow you, and be involved in anything, Joe Blewett, where can they do that?
Joe RB31 on Twitter, Blewett Splits on YouTube. That's the easiest thing.
That's what I'm talking about. Joe, that was awesome. Thank you so much for that. That's very, very good. We'll talk with you soon.
Yeah. Appreciate it, guys.